Writers Read by Lit Tracy. Getting that book in children's hands.
Hi, I'm Tracy Grice, and welcome to this special episode of the Writers Read podcast. Well, the lead up to Book Week is in full swing, and classrooms and libraries across Australia are embracing this year's theme, Reading is My Secret Power. I thought I'd put together a series of Book Week podcasts for you, featuring the Children's Book Council of Australia's shortlisted books in the Younger Readers category. So as usual, I got to spend some time with these authors, hearing an excerpt of their shortlisted novel, and I got to ask them some questions around this year's Book Week theme. On this episode, I'm chatting with award-winning Australian poet and writer Lorraine Marwood, author of Leave Taking.
I'm going to start reading the start of Leave Taking, and the book is set on a farm, a dairy farm, and Toby, the main character, has a lot on his mind. First, he has to say goodbye to his farm, and he is shown an interesting way to do that, and he discovers his own way of coming to terms with grief on two levels. So I'll begin, and here we go with Toby, and he's a fairly independent character by any means and standards. So the title of the first chapter is By the Track. I shiver in my sleeping bag. There's dew on the grass and the faint silver of dawn, but dark shadows hide the everyday world outside my tent. There's the first magpie call. Then Dad slams the back door. The motorbike revs. It's cow milking time and the sun is not even awake. Dad yells, "Morning, Toby," as he passes by, and I smell exhaust fumes, sharp, strong. It's every morning, every evening, milking our herd, 150 cows, trekking from paddock to milking shed, then back out to a new, fresh, juicy paddock for the day. I unzip the tent, peer outside. I am camping on the grass near the farm track, on our farm, once Pa's farm, and his father's before that. I look around as if I've just landed on this tiny piece of rural planet Earth. Deepwell Farm, that's how it's always been known. Once families came from all around in horse and drays to bucket clean water. That's one of Pa's farm stories, how our farm was named. All covered up before my time, said Pa, but the original well is somewhere in that little orchard behind the house. My father showed me how to divine for water. Maybe I could show you and Leah, Pa had said. Yes, yes, we'd shouted, and even though Leah's arms weren't strong, we each had a forked twig and held it just like Pa, then walked up and down the little row between the mulberry tree, the peach tree, the apricot tree, the apple tree, until Pa's twig moved and pointed down like an arrow. Oh, that hurts my arm, all that water energy. Perhaps, Toby, you should have a go. Not you, Leah. Maybe when you're stronger. And Leah's face had gone stormy, so Pa had held her twig too and walked with her, and the water energy had shaken along her twig. You've inherited the skill, Leah. You could be a water diviner, but it's hard work, although some people think it's a joke. And we placed a big rock where the well once was. So, the start, the setup. Hello, I'm Lorraine Marwood, and you're listening to the Writers Read podcast.
Lorraine, thanks for joining us. This year's Book Week theme is Reading is My Secret Power. And so for younger readers, what do you think are the keys for unlocking this secret power?
Yeah, it's a great theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I thought I'd really go back to the basics on this one, and I thought to regularly visit a library, whether it's a school or public library or both, look at what books are displayed in your reading age, what covers or blurbs jump out at you, and then dip into the book. Do you like what you're reading? And another way is, what are your friends reading? does someone in your family or a relative read aloud to you? And that's such a valuable resource to have someone read aloud to you, especially with a verse novel like Leave Taking, because you can hear the rhythm in the work. So often someone reading aloud. Does your librarian at the school read to you? Another little hint would be keeping a reading journal. I do this. I've got a book that I've kept for a number of years, and I just put down the date, the name of the author, the book title, and what did I think? What did I think? Was it a great book, or would I reread it? And then I would just jot down a few character names or plot lines to jog your memory. So I often do that because it's amazing what you forget if you read a lot too. Another hint would be to read widely. You know, if you're really just starting out in this reading adventure, just look at everything around, like funny comics, historical books, graphic novels, short chapter books, picture books, non-fiction, poetry, fantasy, mystery. And then you might find out what sort of stories you really like, that really make you want to keep turning the page and keep borrowing books. Yeah.
That's excellent advice. And I'm really interested to hear more about your reading journal. It's something that we ask our students to keep. So we ask them to keep a log of their reading, and we ask them to, just write down things that are of interest, or questions they have, or inferences they're making as they read. And some students really take to that idea, and others find that it really interrupts the flow of their reading, or, they feel it a bit onerous to write down a log. And I guess, the purpose of the log is really for them to keep a track of, what they've read and the kinds of genres they're reading. And for teachers, it's for, to look at patterns in students' reading and finding out more about, the choices they're making and the, the kinds of books they like to read. So
Yes.
Is that something that you go back and refer to at any time? So you're obviously taking the time to note these things down. Do you go back and read this?
Yes. We'll just, in preparation for our chat, I've actually gone back to my book and really, and I won't even tell you the year I started it, and just even looked back over earlier this year and last year, some of the books. Not everything's entered there, I must say. Some books don't touch me enough to get entered into the journal, but just even looking at the title and just a few comments I've put down, and then I might say I want to read the next one or whatever else this author has read. Yeah, for me, I think it's really important because there's so much going on around you that it's great just to take time. And it might only be a paragraph. That's all I've got. Mm-hmm. But it's enough for me to remember that book.
Great. And so do you, now that you've looked back at this, do you see patterns in your, reading choices?
I do. At the moment, there's two patterns. One is I'm reading everything that's shortlisted with me or anything that's been currently published in my category. And also I have this hankering for fantasy. So,
okay.
And one of my daughters does too. So when I reserve a book in the library, lo and behold, she reserves the same book. So I have to get it read very quickly so that she can get to it. But yeah, I have noticed a pattern. Yes.
And so is fantasy your sort of go-to genre, the one that, when you're in a library or a bookshop and you're looking for your next read, would that be the go-to one?
Yes, it could be, or it could be poetry. Not a lot of poetry is published, but yes, certainly children's fantasy rather than adult fantasy. I might read some adult mysteries and sci-fi, but certainly children's fantasies I will read. For example, Shine Mountain by Julie Hunt, which was a notable this year. I really loved that one, and that was a great book.
And, it's interesting. A lot of my students love fantasy. And it's one genre that I find so difficult to get into, and it's so hard for me to make recommendations to students because it's one that I don't readily pick up. So It's great to hear a fellow adult reader who loves children's fantasies.
Yeah, and I often think that poetry is akin to fantasy too, because, I write a lot of poetry and certainly verse novels, because poetry has another layer of meaning. You're saying one thing, but there's another layer of meaning, and that's what fantasy does too.
Yeah, and I think that, like you say, poetry is really underrepresented, certainly in libraries.
Absolutely. And yet I know when I take workshops, kids just shine in it. It really touches them. So, yeah.
And they can have such fun with it as well. And it's, for budding writers or reluctant writers, it's so less threatening, I think, than having a full blank page.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can get so much done, a complete poem where you can't get a complete short story or a complete story done. And certainly with the verse novel, everything that's extraneous to it has been taken away, and there's a lot of lovely light white paper in there they read too. So that all helps. That's all part of it, I think.
Oh, for sure. And so that probably leads me into the next question. What have you found are the secret powers that books give you that you didn't know you had?
That is such an interesting question. And it took a little bit of reflection, but one of the prominent things straight away I thought of was that I like delving into the thoughts and motivations of characters in books. They both surprise me and comfort me. So, I mean, you're talking to someone or looking at someone, but you can't see what's going on there unless you're really in tune to them. But in a book, you've got that inside layer that the author helps the reader to see how that character feels. And this actually delights me and gives me a secret power to use this technique in my own writing. What I enjoy as a reader makes me think about what and how I write. And probably another aspect of that is that the secret power is taking you, transporting you, and I think probably everyone would tell you this, that you're moving through invisible timelines into another country, another time, another family, someone else's problems. It sharpens my own powers of empathy and understanding, and I think that's really, really important. Experiencing someone else's life or someone else's problems and how they cope or react gives you such a broad base in life, I think. And it leads to gratitude, perhaps gratitude for your own place in life or your own abilities or your own lack of abilities. And I also love the deep sigh when a good book's finished and you wish you could physically go and visit that character and talk to them, or hide behind a bush and view the next episode in their journey. So they're all great secret powers, I think, that reading gives us.
Oh, absolutely. And that feeling when you finish a great book, it's a great feeling when you know there's another one in the series or, written by the same author, and it's sort of in that, that same vein of the one you've just read, but great kind of rip your heart out sometimes when that's it, there's no more, and you want to be able to write to the author and say, come on, what's happening next to this person?
Yeah, I hope people do that to lots of authors, right? And to do the next episode, yeah. And actually that's a plus with fantasy, isn't it? Because they often designed to have more series and more chapters in that life. Yeah,
oh, definitely. Do you find yourself reading series as such?
Yes, I do. If they do have that in a series, yes, certainly I do. And I'm also dabbling in fantasy as a writer too. So whatever you read often fires or gives you that passion to write your own version. And as a child, I was reading what you would call early fantasy, perhaps nothing as robust as some of the fantasy now, but certainly has that wonderful element.
What are your earliest memories of reading?
My father read to me a lot, which was wonderful, and I think that's just like a fairy tale, such a gift you can give your own children and your own grandchildren in my case.
Uh-huh.
But certainly one of my earliest books, and I have it sitting beside me, that I really aspire to write like all the time, is a book, and when I've said this to children, there's only one child in the audience who's ever said, "Oh, I read that," because I don't know whether it's readable for them now, but The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald.
Okay. I don't remember reading it, but I know the title.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, written in the probably, well, not even the 20th century. So, yeah, but just fabulous, fabulous lines of characters and plot that I just love. So, yep, I keep going back to that. And there are a few others also that shine, but, yeah, like Playing Beatty Bow.
Yes, I love that book.
It's fantasy for you.
Well, it is, and I think my reticence to read it is I often think, well, that's not going to happen in real life, and I probably gravitate towards more sort of historical fiction or realistic fiction. But that was the first time where I actually imagined what it would be like to be able to slip through time like that. It was just, that did transport me, and that I can see the power of fantasy right there. But I loved imagining that.
Yeah, and I think with fantasy it doesn't, it's not fairies and goblins and wizards and whatever. It can be historical, it can be futuristic, it can be all those things, and it can be low level. And just have that power to draw someone into the story. So that's what I believe fantasy is too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even my friend Glenda Millard's book, The Stars of October Bend, for a young adult audience, has elements of fantasy in it, I think, and so poetic. So, I don't think it's genre bound. I think there's elements of all sorts of things in it, and that's probably why I like verse novels too, because that breaks the boundaries and stereotypes. So, yeah.
And so you mentioned your father reading aloud to you, and then earlier you mentioned how important it is to read aloud to children. So for my students in particular who will listen to this, do you think it's still important for them to be read aloud to as well?
Oh, yes. I can remember dim, dark ages. I didn't have a library in my primary school, but secondary school, there's a fabulous librarian, and she would read, a chapter or and that you would not pick up, a chapter book, and you'd want to read it. And I used to read at least 2 books a night then.
Oh, wow.
I made up for lost time and lost. And I read widely, but, yeah, she really, reading aloud just transports a child into another place just simply by someone taking the time to read to them and to read an interesting book, maybe one that's a little bit above their level, and with that intoning it correctly and just putting all that emotion and feeling into it. And that would springboard a child into reading too, I think. For
sure. So we've got Book Week looming, and it's a great time for children to really reconnect with the library and hearing great stories read aloud. Usually it's a time when all the shortlisted books are being presented to children and read aloud. So do you have a message for any of the students listening, sort of leading into their Book Week celebrations?
Yeah, well, I think in these current times there is so much fabulous fiction being produced, especially by Australian authors, and there's just such a variety in that short list. And I have the pleasure of being connected to many local writers too, and there's some with humour like Katrina Nanasted's The Girl, the Dog and Writer in Province. Even if it's just a picture book, and not just a picture book, I shouldn't say that because do you think I can write them? No, I can't. Such fabulous enjoyment in the meld of pictures and stories. So I suppose my message would be just have a go at trying a different genre or choosing a different book you might not pick up. And this book week, let that be a challenge and just see what comes of that. Because sometimes I remember when we had to read a book in secondary school as our class novel, I wouldn't necessarily have picked it up, but reflecting back now, it's one of the books I remember. And I still probably wouldn't pick it up, but I know what I read in it has stayed with me. So maybe just choosing something out of your comfort zone is a really good challenge for Book Week.
That's great advice. And thinking about that same theme of books that stay with you, I know that, certainly the work that I do with students will be looking at the younger readers category in particular, because I'm predominantly working with middle and upper primary students. And those shortlisted books are the ones that tend to stay with the students. So we wish you all the very best for the upcoming announcement for the younger readers category. It's a fabulous book, and enjoy Book Week, and we look forward to hearing the outcome.
Yes, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this special Book Week episode of Writers Read featuring Lorraine Marwood. To keep up to date with all our podcasts, make sure you subscribe to Writers Read by Lit Tracy on your preferred platform.
Writers Read by Lit Tracy. Getting that book in children's hands. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram @Writers Read by Lit Tracy.